TheCommandZone.com. This is John here, again with another deck tip for you. Today we are going to look at Azusa Lost But Seeking. Azusa is a 3-cost mono green general. She's a 1/2, and she allows you to put 2 additional lands into play during each of your turns. So what this does is it creates decks that are trying to outvalue opponents by playing more spells in a single turn than your opponents can handle. And that's really how I built this deck. So we're looking to pretty much just put a huge influx of cards and permanents on the board in a single turn, and hopefully just do something that an opponent or multiple opponents cannot handle on a single turn. Okay, so what this deck does is it puts a lot of big green creatures in play, and as well it has elements of a stacked build. So we'll get into that in a couple seconds. I'll talk about that in a moment. So first let's move Azusa out of the way here, and then we will get to the lands. Now, when you're building Azusa, if you do decide to build this deck, it is really imperative that you decide how many lands go into Azusa. So this can be probably one of the biggest problems that any builder will face. I've seen builds in the high 30s all the way up into 50, 52 lands, and that's quite a bit. So what you really have to do is try and figure out how many lands you want to put into your deck. Now for me, I'll start out. I have 42 lands actually in this deck. So there are 42. I believe there are 30 forests, and I will put them all out here for you. So I'm running 30 basic forests. I'm sorry, 32 basic forests. There are 32 basic forests in this deck, which is quite a bit, okay? But really, Azusa can ramp out so hard that you need all the basic forests you can. As well, I'm not running any fetch lands in this deck. Not because I don't have any, but I just decided not to run the fetches. I don't know if they're necessary in this build. I think you want to have like the highest density of basics that you can possibly get for this deck to make her run a little bit smoother. So I did choose not to run any fetches. Okay, also, for the non-basics, we have Strip Mine and Wasteland. Now these come in handy, of course, when you are trying to combo out your opponents like in a stacks type of way with a Crucible of Worlds. And with Azusa out, you can Strip Mine them or Wasteland them 3 times if you are trying to be that kind of opponent. Now, you can do that. It's not recommended, but you can do it. Obviously, Mosswell Bridge, we are playing quite a few creatures, quite a few big creatures, so we'll get to those later. But we have a Tranquil Thicket just for the cycling. Ancient Tombs for more ramp. We have a Thespian Sage, which is quite a new one, and I like it. I haven't really had too much opportunity to abuse it, but I think it is a very good land in this deck. Reliquary Tower, we will draw quite a few cards, so we do need something like that. Next, another new addition is Nykthos, just came out in Theros, and I think Nykthos is a very good card. We do have quite a few green permanents, and so you can really take advantage of a Nykthos type spell. Last one, this is a custom altar by a buddy of mine. We have a Gaia's Cradle in here, of course. And the last one, this is the last non-basic in the deck. This is actually Temple of the False God is a land that I profess that you should really never run in any of your decks because it's always a mulligan when you have it in your opening hand. And I don't think any of us want a mulligan when we have one of our lands in our opening hand. So, now the reason I do play it in Azusa is simply because we get so many lands out in play that it doesn't really matter very much for our deck. But if you can't play it until turn 5, you're kind of, you're a little lost. So anyway, we'll get to what this deck really does, and it's put a lot of lands into play in a single turn. Okay? And we have a few cards that do that for us. We have Oracle Moldiah, which is really not a creature for me. He doesn't really attack. The incidental 2 damage is not really that much. We don't really care about that. So he's more of a way to put lands into play, right? And thin our deck. As well, we have a Gaia's Touch. Allows you to put basic lands into play. That's been errated to that. I just found that out yesterday. We have an Exploration, of course. And more of our stacked build, we have a Storm Cauldron, which is a really, really good card. It allows everyone to put another land into play, a second land, for turn. But anytime you tap a land, it goes back to your hand. So we'll abuse that with Gaia's Cradle and other cards, like Gaia's Cradle or Nykthos, whatever, where we can just build up a huge amount of mana and play a ton of lands, which is kind of cool. And the second part of the stacks. Now, these 2 cards don't really work very well together, but we do have Winter Orb, and the last part of the stacks is the Crucible of Worlds. So that's the additional lands. So with Azusa out in some of these, we'll end up being able to play 3, 4, 5, 6 lands in a single turn, which is quite good. So now we'll get to the artifacts because this is a mono green deck. We are going to run quite a few of those. The first one is Mana Crypt, Soul Ring, Grim Monolith, Mana Vault, Extra Planar Lens, and Gauntlet of Power. Now those are the artifacts that really ramp us, and we have some other utility artifacts that we do around this deck, and I'll show those now. We have Erratic Portal, which is very good. You can really do a lot with this card. You can bounce generals, you can bounce your own cards for more value. Now, just a note on Erratic Portal and Azusa. Recently there was a change to the rules in Magic that said that if you bounce a creature back to your hand, right, let's say you play an Azusa and then you drop 3 lands, you bounce her back with Erratic Portal. If you play her again, you cannot play additional lands. So the game will check that additional lands have already entered the battlefield, and because of that, you will no longer be able to cast additional lands or play additional lands. So just note that in your mind. If you're playing anyone that tries to set a lot of lands down, if they bounce an Oracle and will die or whatever, they cannot do that. The game checks, and so, okay, from there. Now, next one, Horn of Greed. Very, very good card. It's supposed to be parallel. It was originally intended to be parallel, but if we are putting 5 lands in play a turn, then we're drawing 5 additional cards, which is pretty cool. Where your opponent maybe will draw 1 additional card, but it's better for us. Next, we have a Sensei's Top. We have Memory Jar for draw. We have a Staff of Nin for more draw. Staff of Nin is very good in this deck as well, and we have Sword of Feast of Famine. It's the only sword I like to run in EDH because it untaps lands. That's the only reason I like to run it. It's the only sword that really does anything. Maybe Sword and Fire Ice is pretty good because it'll draw a card, or Light and Shadow will get you a card back. But untapping lands is very, very strong and allows you to play more spells, which is more power, and that's how you win games. The last one is a Planar Portal, because we are playing a mono-colored deck, and monocolored decks always tend to have deficiencies built into them. So obviously green doesn't really interact very well with its opponents. It doesn't really remove very many things. So Planar Portal is a good way to make sure that we get our conditions out that we need at the time that we need them. Okay? Alright, so let's move to the creatures. There are 2 types of creatures in this deck, and I tried to build this deck with as many removal spells as possible. Just because green doesn't do that. Okay, so the only way to win a long game with this deck is to really play creatures that remove things, right? And Erratic Portal will allow us to bounce us to our hand and recast them and get some more value out. So anyway, we have Woodfall Primus, we have Terastodon, Ulamog, Vorinclex, which is another stacks card. It's a removal spell because it eliminates lands. We have Sylvan Primordial, Acidic Slime, and a Duplicant in our removal suite for the creatures. Now, if you do want to build this deck, there is an option to build it with a Woodfall Primus, Nim Death Mantle plus Ashnod's Altar, or any sack effect to have like an infinite type of non-creature removal. And you can also do that with any of the other removal spells in the deck. But I didn't build it like that. I already built Glissa like that. So if you want to see that build, that type of build, you can go and check out my Glissa EDH video on YouTube. Alright, and then we'll move to the other creatures in this deck. We have E-Witness, for obvious reasons. We have a Kozilek to draw. Fierce Empath, which is going to get one of our guys. We have the combo of all combos. We have the Regal Force and the Avenger of Zendikar. A very potent set of creatures here. We have Lotus Cobra to really take advantage of all the land drops that we're going to be making every turn. We have a Seaborn Muse. Now this card is not very good, okay? It's only good in the stacks plan with Winter Orb, and outside of that it's really not that great. Like, it'll allow you to attack and then untap, but other than that, the deck doesn't really play any instance or very many, so it's not that effective in this deck, but it's still okay. Now actually, if we're going to talk about changes to make to this deck, there's one thing we want to do, and I think I'm going to take Seaborn Muse out and I will put Greater Good in. Greater Good is an enchantment that allows you to sacrifice creatures to draw cards, and that is extremely powerful, and green needs that really, really badly. This deck needs some way to sacrifice creatures to get around removal or whatever it is and draw cards. It also works with Woodfall Primus and other things, but if you build this deck, you must play Greater Good. Number 1. That's my tip. And then one of my win conditions, Crater Hoof Behemoth, and the best creature in the deck is Rafellos, outside of the general, obviously, but Rafellos is one of the best creatures, and you want to get him out as fast as possible. Green send him out, do whatever you have to do. Anything. Get Rafellos out on turn 2, play all the force you can, and ramp the crap out of your opponents. Alright, next. More ramp. We have Mana Reflection, one of the best cards in the deck. If you land a Mana Reflection, It is very hard to lose. All of your stuff taps for a lot of mana. Sylvan Library. Burgeoning, probably better than Soul Ring in this deck. I don't know. I'm trying to figure that one out. Burgeoning is very, very good. If you can land a Burgeoning, then your opponents really cannot do anything against all of your land drops. You're going to have so many lands, especially if you're playing in a multiplayer game. Your opponents will have 1 or 2 land. You're going to have 5 or 6. It's a really insane card. Next, we have Defense of the Heart. Defense is okay. It will get out my Regal Force Avenger of Zendikar combo. But it's an okay card. I think defense is good because it has to be answered immediately, or it just kind of bogs the game down. So it's okay in that sense. Another one of the win conditions is Concordant Crossroads. We are really going to draw out most of our deck by playing a ton of lands and drawing and playing more lands and drawing, where we need Concordant Crossroads to just sweep everybody and get rid of the entire board, or entire, I guess, your play group at one time. One foul swoop. We also have Survival of the Fittest. And another one of our win conditions is Recycle. Recycle is very, very good. Now it says whenever you play a card, draw a card, okay? If you have never played with Recycle before, just remember that if you play a land, you also get to draw a card, all right? If you play a land, you get to draw a card. I didn't realize that when I first started playing with Recycle, and now I know it is way more broken than I thought it was, because if you play a land, you get a draw. All right. Last but not least, we have the Planeswalkers and Instants and Sorceries. So we'll start out with the 3 Planeswalkers of the deck. We have, I like to call him Big Garrick because he draws his cards. He's there as a draw spell. He draws 6, he draws 7, he draws 9. You regrowth him or whatever it is, and you draw another 9. So you're drawing really like 18 cards in one turn when you have a Garrick out. It's very, very good. He's a very, very good Planeswalker. Also, another removal spell, Karn, green. Like I said, it does not interact very well with your opponents. You don't have the luxury of playing any white cards, or black or whatever for creature removal or enchantment artifact removal. So really, you need these cards, permanents, that do this kind of stuff. And Karn really does it. Another one is All Is Dust. We do play a lot of artifacts and Eldrazi's and stuff, so All Is Dust is pretty good. All right, next, let us go to Green Sun Zenith. This is our second copy of Rafellos. You always get Rafellos if you have a Green Sun in your hand. Rafellos, Rafellos, Rafellos. I'm not going to say that again. Rafellos. You have to get Rafellos. He is the best. If you have Rafellos out, you generally do not lose. All right, here we go. Next one, we have a Kodama's Reach and Skyshore Claim. You are at your leisure to put as many of those kind of ramp cards as you want. I don't like too many of them. I'd rather do it with Azusa's ability, and I'd rather take advantage of a lot of the other cards I have in the deck so that I don't have to play that many. But I do like Skyshore Claim because you can play it on turn 2, and it brings lands in untapped, which is really key. All right, we have another one, Natural Order, which is going to fetch out probably one of our removal spells, most likely Sylvan Primordial. I think it's better than Terastodon, although Terastodon will get 3 non-creatures from a single opponent. I think Sylvan Primordial is better because it will ramp you, so it's pretty good. Either way, you can take a gander at it and see what you like. Okay, next we have Praetor's Council. It's the big regrowth effect, and it gets everything back from the bin. It's very good. We have Harmonize. Let's see what else. We have our second copy of Gaia's Cradle, which is Crop Rotation or Nykthos, whatever is your fancy. After that, we have one of the next really, really good cards in this deck is Boundless Realms. You can do this early game for value. You can do it late game for value. You can do it anytime you want. It's a really, really good card. Boundless Realms, really, really good. Next, Tooth and Nail, obviously. Now, Tooth and Nail is very, very much like a utility card in this deck. It's not a win condition like other combo decks where they're just trying to get, Kiki Capestomite or whatever it is. Tooth and Nail will get a lot of removal spells. He'll get draw. He'll get whatever you need. Tooth and Nail is very good. And the last card in the deck is Genesis Wave. This guy is scary. People do not like Genesis Wave. You can turn 5, whatever it is. You can just pretty much lay out your whole deck. So Genesis Wave is very good. Now, this deck is very susceptible to combo. Okay, mono green decks are not very good against combo decks. However, it is a very good deck against any of the blue counterspell decks or any other creature decks, any smaller fast creature decks. So again, this is really good against, or really bad against combo. You don't want to see combo because we don't interact too well with them in the early turns. But it is very good against blue control because you are just able to play so many spells in one turn that they run out of counter spells, and they're really not able to keep up with all of the permanents you're putting out on board. As well, it's good against the creature decks because it just plays bigger and nastier creatures than your opponents, and then you kind of can just win from there. Okay, so that is Azusa Lost But Seeking. I'm going to have some versus videos coming out soon, so please stick around for that. We'll have some more deck techs for you. All right, enjoy building some decks, and we'll see you next time. This is John from the Command Zone. Bye.